Colorado Plateau, a rugged, arid land of raised plains and basins, spreads over portions of Colorado, Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. In this great land lie some of the most spectacular sights nature has to offer. Endless canyons, towering spires, vast mesas, and gorges beyond compare. Why are these landmarks so close to each other, so different from each other? What forces made each unique? Why did they form here? In 1869, Major John Wesley Powell, a one-armed retired Union Army officer, set out from Green River, Wyoming, with 9 men in 4 pine boats to journey down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. His incredible adventure-filled journey covered 1,048 miles of the river and lasted 98 days. Along the way, 1 boat was destroyed and 4 men quit, 3 of them never to be seen again. The stories Powell lived to tell, his written accounts of the awe-inspiring scenery that urged him downriver despite the danger and fear of the unknown, sparked a curiosity among other Americans who were determined to see and preserve this great land. The river rolls by us in silent majesty. Powell wrote from his campsite at the end of the journey, "Our joy is almost ecstasy." Today, some 5 million people from around the world each share Major Powell's sense of joy and wonder as they visit Grand Canyon National Park. The Grand Canyon of the Colorado River is truly one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. Havasu Canyon is an oasis that has been described as a paradise. Home to Indians for more than 1,000 years, the area has been inhabited by the Havasupai since before the first Europeans arrived to the area. Havasu Falls, also known as Bridal Veil Falls, spills through a travertine rim into a turquoise pool less than 100 feet below. People come from around the world to experience its beauty. In 1919, the U.S. Congress passed a bill signed by President Woodrow Wilson establishing a territory 56 miles wide as Grand Canyon National Park. Today, the park comprises 1,900 square miles and encompasses more than 277 miles of land along the Colorado River. More than 2 million cubic meters of rock were swept away in the canyon's making. But nobody has yet worked out where this vast quantity of debris went. In winter, a hush comes over the canyon with the arrival of snow and swirling fog. The north rim averages more than 128 inches of snow each year, with the south rim receiving less than 65 inches. Less than 1 inch of snow falls yearly in the inner canyon, where winter temperatures can be 20 degrees warmer than on the rims. Cycles of freezing and thawing splinter the rock and accelerate the pace of erosion. Throughout the canyon, nature displays extraordinary works of art. One of these is Mount Hayden, named for Arizona pioneer Charles Trumbull Hayden. Naturally sculpted of sandstone, it sits on a bed of red hermit shale. The Navajo Indians arrived about 600 years ago, and today inhabit a reservation bordering the canyon's eastern side. The first Europeans to lay eyes on the wonders of the Grand Canyon were Spanish conquistadors in 1540. They came looking for a great river and fabled 7 cities of gold. Disappointed and unimpressed, however, they left without even honoring the canyon with a name. 200 years later when the next Spaniard further explored the area. In Spanish, the word Colorado means ruddy or red-colored. The silt in the Colorado River's water gives it a red brick color, prompting its name. During the 16th and 17th centuries, Spanish explorers gave the river many names, translating, for example, to River of Good Guidance, Firebrand River, and the River of Good Hope. Gradually, the river came to be known as Rio Colorado del Norte, or Red River of the North, eventually anglicized to simply the Colorado River. Until the 1850s, the Grand Canyon was often referred to as the Big Canyon. Maps of the time indicate that by 1868, the name Grand Canyon had come into general acceptance. In 1821, control of the Grand Canyon area shifted from Spain to Mexico. During this time, American fur trappers began to frequent the area. One trapping expedition reportedly reached the floor of the canyon's western end in 1828. "20 years later, in 1848, the Grand Canyon became part of the United States, as did the territories of New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and California, with the signing of the treaty ending the war between Mexico and the United States. The first white man to question the canyon's geologic formations was Dr. John Strong Newberry, who accompanied Lieutenant Joseph Christmas Ives of the U.S. Corps of Topographical Engineers to the Grand Canyon in 1858. Despite the fact that Lieutenant Ives described the canyon as valueless, Newberry wrote extensively of the area, proposing that the Colorado River had caused the canyon's erosion. Interest in the Grand Canyon continued throughout the late 1880s. In 1893, President Benjamin Harrison named the area Grand Canyon Forest Preserve, preventing prospectors and settlers from overtaking and misusing the land. Harrison's efforts laid the groundwork for making the canyon a national park. One of the most interesting formations at the Grand Canyon is Angel's Window on the North Rim. The natural frame was created by years of fracturing, weathering, and the pull of gravity. Grand Canyon is home to more than 287 species of birds. Also within its greatly varying altitudes are 88 kinds of mammals, 50 types of reptiles, and 8 species of amphibians. In 1903, President Theodore Roosevelt had this to say about the Grand Canyon. Keep this great wonder of nature as it now is. Leave it as it is. You cannot improve on it, not a bit. The ages have been at work on it, and man can only mar it. What you can do is keep it for your children, your children's children, and for all who come after you, as the one great sight which every American, if he can travel at all, should see.
There are few adjectives that truly describe its majesty, but geologists call this area the Grand Staircase. Each step of this immense staircase is made up of a different rock layer. By traveling a short distance from northern Arizona to southern Utah, one can journey on much of this incredible staircase, a very special trip that can be experienced nowhere else. From the fragile hoodoos of Bryce, to the huge sandstone sentinels of Zion, to the mammoth monoliths of Glen Canyon, this passage through time is a wondrous journey. In 1923, the The area now known as Bryce Canyon was set aside as a national monument. In 1928, it became a national park with almost 36,000 acres. But prior to white settlement, the area near Bryce had first been inhabited by desert Archaic and basket maker Indians, who later evolved into the Anasazi Indians. By the 13th century, the Anasazi had left the area and were replaced by the Paiute tribe, moving in from the west. The Anasazi were sedentary agrarians who farmed the canyons, and the desert Archaic and Paiute survived by hunting and gathering. Spanish explorers passed through the region in the 1700s, but the first white settlers to live here were the Mormons, who made their way to the Bryce area in the 1850s. By the mid-1870s, a Mormon named Ebenezer Bryce settled with his wife Mary and their family in the Paria River Valley below the canyon. Bryce tried his hand at ranching, farming, and carpentry work.
To get timber to build with, he built a real rugged road that came right up into the Bryce Amphitheater. He'd come up in there and cut ponderosa pine, haul it back down into the valley. The road that took him up into the amphitheater, in that area behind his ranch, all the other folks living down there in the valley with Ebenezer and Mary began to refer to that place up behind his cabin and his ranch as Bryce's Canyon, the name which eventually stuck and became the name of the national park.
Life here proved to be too difficult, and after a few years, Bryce left his homestead and moved his family to Arizona. A saying attributed to Bryce states that the canyon was a place to lose a cow. One look into the canyon and it's easy to see what Bryce meant. The hundreds of natural spires and turrets jutting up from the canyon create a labyrinth on the canyon floor. These towering formations, called hoodoos, could certainly have sparked wild and eerie imaginings for one in search of a lost cow in the amphitheater below.
Well, definitely the biggest attraction of Bryce Canyon are these rock formations that we call hoodoos. Out, what you see in the background here, these freestanding rock forms that are carved by the forces of erosion. The word hoodoo actually comes from the word voodoo. The hoodoos of Bryce Canyon are basically erosional features. And the reason the hoodoos are left standing while the rest of the material is washed away is because they get capped off by a harder type of rock that we call cap rock, more of a pure type of limestone that protects these features from erosion. It's hard to tell how long it'll take for a hoodoo to be created or how long it'll take for it to be washed away. If the rim is eroding 1 foot every 65 years, then you could count on a new hoodoo forming maybe in 1,000 years. Wouldn't be an unreasonable amount of time. And remember, geologically, that's fast. Well, basically, the formation of Bryce occurred in 3 big steps, which is common with the parks in the Colorado Plateau. The rock layers were deposited as sedimentary rocks in an old freshwater lake. They were subsequently uplifted, and then over time, because of the uplift and the changes that caused, the erosion has created Bryce Canyon and is still doing that today.
Within the park, there are a multitude of colors and rock formations, as well as climates, elevations, and ecosystems. The variety of color and shapes is almost overwhelming. Iron oxides give the rocks a wide-ranging palette. The redder rocks have more oxides, the lighter rocks less. This striking collection of hues and formations gives Bryce a stunning array of vistas. Some of the rock forms have picked up descriptive nicknames over the years. The hunter, chasing after the rabbit in Awa Canyon, is a popular spot, as is the natural bridge nearby. Along the Navajo Loop Trail is Thor's Hammer, and in the Queen's Garden is a rock shape that is named Queen Victoria. In addition to these formations, others such as the Silent City, the Wall of Windows, and the Alligator provide a myriad of shapes to challenge the imagination.
I think that the first-time visitor to Bryce Canyon is coming here to see the world-class geology that's right in front of their eyes here in southern Utah. This is some of the most unique geology you can experience anywhere, this western part of the Colorado Plateau, and it's the rock formations that draw people here. But once they get here, I think if they have the time to slow their pace and explore things a little closer, they realize that there's a lot more going on here than just rocks. Big part of the story maybe is the geologic story, but with time to explore Bryce, you realize that there's a lot of little things that all add up. Here at Bryce, it sustains up on top of the plateau a very beautiful forest of ponderosa pine. The hiking trails in the park take you down into the lower, warmer regions of the park, and down in those areas you'll see pinyon pine and juniper trees, a different type of forest community. The very south end of the park, the extreme southern end of this high plateau, is up over 9,000 feet in elevation, and down there it's in almost an alpine setting with quaking aspen trees and Douglas and white fir trees. Three very separate, distinct forest communities to explore here, and along with those communities, the wild flowers that bloom in the spring, and the wildlife that is attracted by those forest communities, the natural setting here at Bryce. So there's a lot to be discovered here, not just rocks.
Bryce Canyon National Park is populated by a diversity of wildlife. Black bear and bighorn sheep, mule deer, coyote, and mountain lions are a few of the animals that make their homes within the boundaries of the park. Though black bear and bighorn sheep are rarely seen, mule deer and coyote are frequently spotted. The grizzly bear once roamed this country, but no longer lives here. Over the years, increased human encroachment on grizzly bear habitat drove the bears away. Today, rangers worry that the park's small size may create similar problems for other species as the world closes in more and more on Bryce's outer limits. Observing wildlife is just one of many ways to spend time at Bryce. Astronomy lovers find the night skies at Bryce crystal clear. Often groups gather to hold star parties. Touring the park by car is also very popular, as much of the park can be seen from the roadways. Park rangers lead walks and hikes throughout the park, providing an abundance of facts and lore about the park's wildlife, geology, and plant life. There are also horseback trail rides down into the canyon, as well as air tours by helicopter and airplane. Bryce also has an impressive network of trails for hikers and campers.
Certainly, there's two perspectives. When you step up to the views of Bryce Canyon, you look down on everything, and you're overwhelmed by the variety of shape, color, and form in the formations looking down. You get fantastic long-distance views off the edge of the plateau, looking out across a big chunk of southern Utah and even into northern Arizona. Great panoramic vistas. That's one perspective up on top looking down, but if you have the time to get out on the trails to take you right to the heart of this really fantastic stuff, the world changes. Once you get below the rim, it's entirely different. To get up close to the rocks and examine how finely held together they are, how loosely held together, you start to ask those questions in your mind. How did this all happen? And definitely your curiosity piqued, your sense of wonder, and you want to get a better feel for the powerful forces that have created this very unique spot.
More than 1 million visitors come to this magnificent canyon every year, with most of the visitation occurring during the summer months. No matter what time of year, Bryce is constantly in flux with its changing light, shadows, and colors.
A nice place to be in the evening at Bryce Canyon. There's a big high ridge between the viewpoints at Bryce Point and Inspiration Point. It's a nice ridge from where you can see the sunset 60 miles to the west and watch the shadows slowly move out across the formations until eventually all of the park is in the shadows, but then to the east the Table Cliffs light up and stay lit up for another half hour, and Navajo Mountain, 90 miles distant. I personally haven't found a better place to spend summers than the top of a high plateau in southern Utah. It's a place where there's a lot of inspiration to be found, and those folks that slow their pace and once they get here decide to maybe even spend a couple extra days, they begin to find a little quiet time by themselves. They begin to come to a better understanding of what the place is all about, what this spectacular natural world is all about, particularly if they take the time to maybe attend some of the ranger activities. And as you slowly come to a better understanding for the forces at work here that geologically have created Bryce Canyon, and a better understanding of the forest and wildlife communities, slowly you begin to appreciate what a beautiful, marvelous place it is, and it's your appreciation that eventually leads to a commitment for protection of a beautiful place like Bryce Canyon.
90 miles to the southwest of Bryce lies Zion National Park, the middle section of the Grand Staircase. Whereas at Bryce one is dazzled by the hundreds of hoodoos and the myriad of colors, at Zion one feels the massive size and power of the enormous sandstone monoliths. These awe-inspiring formations dwarf human accomplishments and bring center stage the uncontainable forces of nature. As at Bryce, there are a multitude of amazing rock forms and geological features at Zion. Rock uplifts jut from the lower layers at almost perpendicular angles. Some of these forms are further distinguished by swirling and checkerboard patterns, which wind, water, and extremes in temperature have etched into the sandstone. As well, volcanic eruptions have left behind wide lava fields. Another unique geological feature are the sheer walls of the canyon, cut by the North Fork of the Virgin River, which tower majestically over the canyon.
The reason the walls in Zion are so vertical as opposed to like the Grand Canyon, for example, that's a stair-stepped, not vertical canyon, is for two reasons. One is the walls here are composed of one formation, whereas the Grand Canyon is composed of many formations, some of them hard and some of them soft. Zion's walls are composed of the Navajo sandstone, which is almost 2,200 feet in thickness. It reaches its maximum thickness here in this area. It's a fairly hard sandstone, so it can hold up vertically without too much trouble. It's a fascinating rock because it's all from sand dunes.
Rock and water have created a myriad of natural wonders at Zion.
The reason that the Zion Canyon River here, the Virgin, runs year-round is due to the fact that there is a lot of water on the plateaus above this canyon. And all of this water makes its way eventually into the Navajo sandstone, which is horizontally and vertically jointed. And the water is held in these joints. And as the water comes down and hits the Kayenta level, the Kayenta rock layer, it's not allowed to pass through this rock. It's impermeable, and the water's forced out laterally. Some of the more famous sites that show this feature is the Weeping Rock, and this is a spot where the water is just dripping slowly out of the seep line where these two rock layers meet. And also the Emerald Pools. It's a little more dramatic there. A little more water gets out at that line, and there's a series of waterfalls and pools up there.
The North Fork of the Virgin River provides a dramatic contrast to the huge rock forms as it meanders down Zion Canyon. At the upper end of the canyon is the well-known feature called the Narrows.
This is a very popular tourist destination for people all over the world now. They come to see the Zion Narrows, and this is an area where at the end of the Gateway Trail you can hike up into the canyon, and in some places the canyon walls tower 2,000 feet above the person walking through the water, and in some cases it's no more than 20 or 40 feet wide. It's one of the highest canyons in the world that is actually so narrow. The walls are so close together, yet are so high at the same time. So it gives you a real feeling of sort of like Indiana Jones, that you're going into some lost world somewhere, like a crack in the earth opened up, and that you somehow have the special privilege and right to get in there and really explore it.
Visitors traveling up the Narrows must be wary of possibly heavy thunderstorms during the summer.
It tends to rain very hard in a short period of time. There's no vegetation to stop the rain. It finds its way into the river. The river is capable of flash flooding, and flash flooding in the West means flash flooding. We're talking sometimes about a 2, 3, 4, 5, 10-foot wall of water coming down the river at once. And it's then that the Virgin River does its work, and it not only then carries mud and silt and sand, it also carries cobbles and sometimes bumps boulders along the base. People have said they could hear boulders crunching against each other as the river was under flood.
The presence of a reliable water source made the Zion area an obvious choice for early Native Americans. Like Bryce, this region was home to both the Anasazi and later the Paiute Indians. The first white pioneers to settle here were also Mormons. They moved into the Zion area in the 1850s and 1860s and began farming and ranching along the Virgin River. Zion Canyon was inaccessible to much of the outside world because its steep walls were a natural barrier and travel into the area could be treacherous. But word of the canyon's amazing geologic features finally began seeping out to the outside world. In 1909, a national monument was established. In 1919, Zion was made a national park. Entrance into the park from the east finally became possible when the Zion-Mount Carmel Highway was completed in 1930. Today, almost 2.5 million people visit the park annually. Once here, visitors can enjoy a wide range of activities. There are day hikes available throughout the park, as well as opportunities for backcountry camping. There are shuttle tram tours of the park, as well as horseback rides to some of Zion's finest features. Many visitors take advantage of ranger-led programs and hikes that offer a wealth of information about Zion and what it has to offer. The park also offers a junior ranger program to help youngsters learn more about preserving and protecting the park's environment and wildlife. Much of the park can also be enjoyed from scenic roadways and pullouts at prominent vistas. It's easy to notice the larger aspects of Zion, but the smaller wonders of Zion, from the wide array of delicate ferns and flowers to the rich variety of wildlife, play their own part in contributing to the park's natural beauty.
Zion has a pretty stable population of wildlife. One of the things that we have a very healthy population of are mountain lions. We don't see them very often, but there's plenty of food for them here, and they're protected from hunting. All of the animals in national parks are protected from hunting. We have an abundance of deer here in the main canyon and throughout the park, and they are our primary food source for the mountain lions. Zion has gotten special attention in recent years because we have a healthy population of peregrine falcons. Peregrine falcons here do not have to migrate and consequently do not come in contact with DDT-tainted insects or birds that can be found in Mexico. So we're studying the peregrine here in hopes that we can transmit knowledge of a healthy population to other areas that are trying to bring back their peregrine populations. One thing that peregrines really like are cliffs to raise their young, and I don't think you could ask for probably a better place in the world for peregrines in that way. We have bighorn sheep. They were reintroduced years ago, and we've been monitoring them through the years, and we have probably decided that it would be a good idea to reintroduce some males into the stock because it's getting a little weak.
Zion's wide range of elevation supports several different ecosystems. The vegetation starts with Upper Sonoran Desert at lower elevations and progresses up into Manzanita and Pinon at 5,000 to 7,000 feet. On the top of the cliffs are ponderosa pine. A hiker can see these various ecosystems, cactus to ferns to Douglas fir, in a matter of minutes on trails throughout the park. There's also a tremendous variety of rock forms in the park: lava fields, a petrified forest, and the sandstone canyons of Zion and the Kolob. The finger canyons of the Kolob area are in the northwest section of the park and boast some of the area's finest scenery. Zion Canyon is the better known of the two, with its many impressive monoliths, some sporting names like the Temple of Sinawava, the Great White Throne, the Sentinel, Angel's Landing, and Court of the Patriarchs. Near the Visitor Center are the Watchman and the West Temple. Zion's canyons and rock forms sport a rainbow of colors, from brown and red to orange and white. The rocks have obtained their color in several ways. Much of it comes from the amount of iron oxide present in a formation. Cliffs that are very red have higher levels of iron oxide. In the case of some rocks, surface color may be the result of stains from other rocks. Oxides seeping from rocks at higher levels run down over the face of lower rock layers, giving them a coat of color. This can also take the form of streaking or staining. Numerous rocks in the park have red and black streaks along their faces. Some of the formations may also show evidence of a desert varnish, a shiny black coating created by a bacteria. Within the almost 150,000 acres that make up Zion National Park, there are many opportunities to discover more about this region's striking geology and diverse animal and plant life. From waterfalls and wildflowers to jagged sandstone peaks and checkerboard mesas, Zion offers a dazzling display of nature's handiwork. The erosive powers of wind and water, along with the geological uplift and volcanism in the region, have created a symphony of rock forms, textures, and colors.
Well, Zion really looks to me like a big piece of modern art, of abstract sculpture. And you can get into some of these canyons and there's orange and red fluted rock, and the canyon is quite narrow and sometimes overhanging. There's lots of little cathedrals everywhere here in Zion that one can take a look at and really enjoy as outdoor sculpture. This place just tends to take me away. It's just like an enormous room. It's like my own private gallery of art.
Approximately 130 miles to the southeast of Zion is one of the most rugged and inaccessible places in the southwestern United States. Historically, this region has long been isolated from travelers by its natural barriers. Even today, there are only 3 routes through this vast expanse. This area in southeastern Utah and northern Arizona was named Glen Canyon by John Wesley Powell, who made the first expedition down the Colorado River in 1869. Glen Canyon National Recreation Area was established in 1972 and covers more than 1.25 million acres. Within this acreage lies Lake Powell, a body of water that is about 200 miles long, has 96 side canyons, and almost 2,000 miles of shoreline. The area is significant geographically because it is here that the Colorado, the Dirty Devil, the Escalante, and the San Juan, 4 major rivers, converge. Lake Powell was created after Glen Canyon Dam was built on the Colorado River in 1956. Flood control and water storage were 2 of the major reasons for creating the lake. Prior to 1956, the Colorado River was unpredictable and undependable. Swollen in the spring with melting snow runoff and rains, the engorged river flooded vast areas. During the dry season in the summer and fall, the river often dwindled to a small stream, creating severe water shortages. The building of the dam ensured a stable and dependable supply of water for this arid region. Lake Powell reached full water capacity by 1980. The lake represents only 13% of the total acreage here. Even so, it covers more than 160,000 acres and can hold 26.25 million acre-feet of water. The entire Glen Canyon Dam project cost more than $270 million. More than 5.25 million cubic yards of concrete were used in its construction. Included in the project was a hydroelectric power generating plant that produces close to 1,300,000 kilowatts of electricity. The power generated by the dam is sold to city and state governments and public utility companies in 7 western states. Human presence in Glen Canyon dates back to BC 1000. As at Bryce and Zion, the first Native Americans here were desert archaic Indians who followed a hunting and gathering existence. They evolved into the Anasazi tribe, who lived here until 1300 AD. The Anasazi left behind some of their dwellings and rock art, which can be seen today at places like Defiance House Ruin in Forgotten Canyon, at the north end of Lake Powell. Archaeologists are not sure why the Anasazi left the area. They may have been forced out by drought and lack of food, or enemy tribes moving into the region. Some of the Kayenti Anasazi who were in the area may have been assimilated into the present-day Hopi Indian tribe. As at Bryce and Zion, Paiute Indians settled in Glen Canyon after the Anasazi. The Paiutes were in turn forced to leave the canyon as the Navajo tribe moved into the region. The Navajos still live in the area today. Their 16 million acre reservation butts the southern boundary of Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. The first travelers to venture into the area were a group of Spanish explorers who came here in 1776. Led by 2 Franciscan priests named Escalante and Dominguez, the explorers were seeking a route from Santa Fe, New Mexico, to Monterey, California. The Dominguez-Escalante expedition to Glen Canyon was a harrowing one. The party first tried to cross at the present-day site of Lee's Ferry, but the Colorado River was flooding, and several of the party were almost drowned. With food and other necessities in short supply, the expedition was forced to hike up and around the canyon in search for a better crossing. They finally found a wide but shallow part of the river and forged across it. Today, the crossing of the Fathers lies at the bottom of Padre Bay in the southern section of Lake Powell. The hardships endured by this expedition discouraged any travel through the region for almost 100 years. It wasn't until 1869 that John Wesley Powell, for whom the lake is named, started his famous trip down the Colorado. In 1889, a railroad route was being considered through the region, until several members of the survey party drowned and the idea was abandoned. Travel through the area was almost non-existent until 3 reliable river crossings were discovered in Glen Canyon: Lee's Ferry at the southern end, Hall's Crossing in the middle, and Dandy or Height Crossing at the north end. Today, old buildings still mark the site of Lee's Ferry. Hall's Crossing is now the Bullfrog Basin area of the lake, where motorists cross on a regular scheduled ferry boat. Cass Height discovered what he called a dandy crossing at the north end, and today the site is marked by a marina as well as a highway bridge that spans the water at the crossing. The geological story at Glen Canyon is very similar to that of Bryce and Zion, since it is part of the same Colorado Plateau. Although the sedimentary layers in Glen Canyon are older and hence farther down on the grand staircase, the same deposition, uplift, and erosional processes that occurred in the other 2 parks also took place at Glen Canyon. The presence of 4 major river systems created spectacular erosional features as the rivers cut down through rock. The result of their meanderings is a winding maze of steep, rugged canyons that are considered to be among the finest in the Southwest. The visitor traveling through this labyrinth of canyons is in store for many surprises. Natural rock marvels created by wind and water wait deep within, out of view, until the unsuspecting visitor happens upon them. One of these natural wonders, Rainbow Bridge, can be found in Bridge Canyon below Navajo Mountain near the center of the recreation area. This extraordinary natural span is a geologic rarity. Long sacred to the tribes that inhabited the canyons, Rainbow Bridge was discovered by white explorers in 1909 and made a national monument the following year. Whereas natural arches are formed by wind action, natural bridges are created by water. The bridge has a span of 275 feet and towers almost 300 feet above the canyon floor. The top of the bridge is 42 feet thick and 33 feet wide.
What the stream did was, as the stream meandered back and forth, cutting through the sandstone, sometimes over time the river's going to tend to meander. The tortuosity or the degree with which the bend of the river occurs increases. And so the neck of the meander gets very, very thin. And occasionally what sometimes happens is that there'll be a weakness somewhere in there and water will start eroding right through as a shortcut through the meander. And what you end up with is a natural bridge. The underpart's been eroded away by the water and you're just left with a sandstone bridge representing the old meander neck.
Rainbow Bridge is a spiritual place to the American Indians in the area, the Paiute and the Navajo. In fact, there's a Navajo blessing that must be said if you are passing under Rainbow Bridge in order to receive the blessing of the rainbow, which is good luck, of course.
One of the most rugged areas located in the upper central section of the National Recreation Area is Escalante Canyon. It is here that the visitor really sees what Glen Canyon looked like before it was flooded by Lake Powell. Within Escalante Canyon are natural bridges and arches, steep canyon walls, waterfalls, lush vegetation, and prolific wildlife and a glorious backcountry. It is at the center of this spectacular wilderness that hiking and camping here are at their best. It is in parts of the recreation area, such as Escalante, that the visitor will have the best chance of seeing the undisturbed animal and plant life in Glen Canyon. Coyote, mule deer, beaver, hawks, and eagles can be spotted throughout the area. Many of the plants are representative of the desert region, with cactus and yucca at lower elevations, and pinon and juniper higher up. Rainfall in the spring and summer triggers a wide variety of wildflower blooms here. Of course, most of the visitors to Glen Canyon come for the cool and refreshing waters of Lake Powell and the recreational activities offered here. Water sports reign supreme on the lake. There is water skiing, jet skiing, sailing, and fishing available, as well as a variety of boat tours up and down the lake. One of the more popular ways to enjoy Lake Powell is by houseboat. Houseboats allow visitors a more leisurely way to explore the canyons along the lake and relish the scenery. Literally a floating RV, houseboats provide the perfect opportunity for a relaxing vacation at one of America's premier recreation areas. Waweep Marina, near the town of Page, Arizona, is the center of all water activity on Lake Powell. Here, visitors may rent their powerboats and houseboats, as well as sign up for boat tours to places like Rainbow Bridge. Waweep features a variety of visitor services, including a lodge, restaurant, and stores. There are also other marinas and services available throughout Glen Canyon at Height, Bullfrog Basin, and Dangling Rope. At Lone Rock, just down from Waweep, visitors can experience another popular and growing sport here, mountain biking. A network of trails have been created, and ATV, mountain bicycle, and motorbike enthusiasts can be seen riding the hills and dunes in designated areas near Lone Rock. Visitors to Glen Canyon can also tour the impressive dam or go on ranger-led walks and activities which help interpret the history and geology of the area, as well as the animal and plant life. The creation of Lake Powell, while an enormous recreational asset to the southwestern region of the United States, is also a contradiction of sorts. In creating this lake for recreation, water storage, and power generation, the federal government also destroyed some of the pre-existing features here. Those historic and natural areas are now under hundreds of feet of water. Conservationists have long claimed that the real Glen Canyon was altered and even destroyed by Lake Powell. And the debate continues today.
Some people like to think that or like to suggest that it's made the area more accessible, and certainly Lake Powell is a nice big blue superhighway that takes you back to some beautiful areas. It has definitely changed the ecosystem that existed here prior to the impoundment of the Colorado River, from an area that was a slow-moving, generally very heavily silt-laden, warm water tributary river to a cold water, very deep lake. A lot of the habitat for some of the animals that are native to these canyons was destroyed. A lot of new habitat was created as well by this large reservoir. We have quite a migration of water birds that come through here. We have an extraordinarily large wintering bald eagle population. These things didn't exist prior to the reservoir. The things that did exist prior to the reservoir, though, in many ways have been totally eliminated from this ecosystem. Glen Canyon represents to me a place of a lot of contradictions, actually. The changes that have been wrought, the things that have been lost, and then the things that have been gained. And there's a lot of good things as well. I think probably the thing that, it's an entire canyon country feeling for me. This is a very, very special place. This is just one of many of the special places. The backcountry and the opportunity to actually get in there with nature and touch the rock and slip in the mud and shower in the waterfalls, all those things I think are essentially something that most humans do require at some point in time, that ability to reconnect with what's really important in our lives.
Monument Valley stretches across the Navajo Indian Reservation in northeastern Arizona and southeastern Utah. Several hundred miles east of Zion, it is very different from the other deeply eroded parts of the Colorado Plateau. Buttes, mesas, cliffs, arches, and canyons of red sandstone stand as sentinels scattered across the sandy plain. These tall, steep-sided towers of rock were once part of a large flat-topped plateau. As the area was uplifted, streams gradually carved the plateau into smaller mesas covered with hard caprock. Gradually, thunderstorms and wind worked on the exposed sides, reducing the mesas to buttes. Further reduced, the buttes became freestanding spires of rock called monuments. This arid terrain was made famous in films shot on location here, including director John Ford's 1938 Stagecoach. Names like Elephant Butte, the Big Chair, the Totem Pole, and the Thumb aptly describe the dramatic formations.